Great. So super excited to give an overview on what we're building at Pixelynx and how we think the future of music will unfold. Before I jump in, I wanted to give you a bit of a backstory on how we kind of came to this point. One of the things we were thinking about a lot was, the role that MTV played in the music industry was so profound. It was this point where music videos suddenly became this new canvas for artists to express themselves. And I don't think we've had this moment since then where there's a new canvas for artists to really think about their creativity and to let their music free. So what we'll show you today is an overview on what we're building at Pixelynx and how we believe the canvas for the music industry is going to change fundamentally. And that is the merging of gaming and music to create a new way for fans to consume music and artists to also express their vision. And it comes around this really interesting idea around setting music free. What does that mean? And we'll show you some examples on how we think that new future will look. But before we jump in, I'll play a little video where you can hear from our founders, Richie Hawtin and Joel Zimmerman, deadmau5, on the underlying ideas behind the business.
The music industry that we've grown up in has really been so linear. Also music making, and I think the whole process from creative to distribution to enjoyment to participation to interaction is now going in this kind of multi-dimensional direction all at the same time. And that's what excites me. I grew up as a kid coding and sitting in front of a computer and starting to make relationships and communicating over electronic wires, typing on a keyboard, and that turned into frequencies and music. And this is just another extension of using tech to reach out and connect to like-minded people and share in experiences. Having the ability to envision an audio-visual interactive experience in one architecture and stop worrying about the technical limitations of tying different programs and pipelines together will be completely creatively liberating. We can stop talking and thinking, well, we'll always talk and think about tech, but maybe minimize it a little bit and just go as deep as we can into where this creative convergence lies.
For some, there's a very select number of people that it's like, at what point am I now a musician as I am a developer? Whereas a lot of musicians kind of that's all good and great, and they're all positive about being part of all this new technology and stuff, but just don't have the cunning and guile and whatever else is required to dive into a game engine and start slapping nodes networks together, building their own tools and all that stuff. It definitely takes a lot of time and prowess to do that. So we're definitely imposing a lot of new. If this were to become the new norm, it would be the new standard, and standards being dropped, especially high ones in terms of, developing immersive media and stuff like that requires more than just an idea and an instrument in your hand. It's you're gonna have to definitely employ a lot of new skill sets and stuff like that, or join collaboratives or with other developers and stuff like that too. So it's definitely healthy for community building.
Joel, you just said community, and that's actually kind of what I think why we have come together and the greater team at Pixelynx, because we've all been on our own with great people around us, coding things ourselves, diving down the rabbit hole. But at this point, coming together and building our own company, our own community, which we can share these ideas and riff off of each other and actually make this development process faster and roll out things that the greater community of creatives who can get this vision can use is part of our pipeline. I think part of what we're doing. I think music in its present form is pretty archaic. It's solid. It's that's what it is. That you can't break it apart. You can't really interact with it. So, the systems that are coming on board with synthesis being an Unreal Engine, with Web3, with generative audio being able to be scripted into smart contracts, this is what excites me. I don't want to use Web3 or all these new techs to just make another WAV file that can sit on another Spotify that may be decentralized. For me, goes back to even the beginning of my career and seeing a great album cover and then listening to the music and feeling, wow, this all is a cohesive experience. What I saw is what I'm hearing now. And so when I got into actually trying to create the first Plastikman shows, especially around 2004, we jumped right into very, very early versions of Touch Designer, which was an environment that could do real-time visualization, audio-visual connections, and pipelines, and started to build all the shows from that day on. And even back then, we had some very rudimentary pipelines between iPhone and internet where people could press a couple of buttons during certain moments of the show and have this kind of aha interactive moment. And even though they were very rudimentary, they were still like very basic gameplay tests or experiments. And what we're working on now with Plastikman 3.0 is kind of an integration of Unreal, of Touch, and just, seeing how we can envision that to have both a physical and virtual experience that combine together, but also have their own identity.
I took to UE as more of a production tool for live event production. First, starting with show pre-visualization, so that I could run my lights and see my pixel maps in 3D space and be able to move around it, so I could see how our stage mechanics worked and behaved and looked in a pretty close to realistic way. And I thought that was great, because upon playing video games, it was like, well, these games all look great and it's very near real, very, very high quality real-time renders of all this stuff. Why can't this just be a production tool? Fortnite started doing live concerts. Minecraft started doing live concerts. Every quote unquote metaverse under the sun was doing some kind of event production during the pandemic, which was pretty much the trigger for all of it. And I thought, well, since I had this previs thing already running, it's just a matter of adding multiplayer support and some avatars and stuff to start, and then slapping together some netcode and getting multiplayer in. And we've been in and out of different frameworks for that process, but now I'm excited to kind of build our own with Pixelynx. Web3 to me, just like for music and creation, screams liberation from the societal norms that we know, which is, again, as far as I knew 10 years ago, was get in the studio, make the music, finish it, give it to management, or however you got to do it, and get it on a DSP. And then that's where the questions start to come up. Wait, as an artist, why is it so hard for me to figure out how much I'm reaching on these systems in terms of like plays and payment and control of the music and how it's being used? It was even kind of confusing before DSPs, for as all as I knew, is like about like radio placement and stuff like that, where it's like they would say, oh, well, here's how royalties work, here's how IRSC works and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, I can semi get my head around this, but I really don't fully understand it and all that stuff, where it's like Web3 is kind of like the flag bearer of liberation for, transparency for an artist, where it's like, now I don't have to, kind of be bummed out that there's a multi-billion-dollar company that has billions and billions of dollars, and the artist is getting a fraction of a cent per 100 plays. That something doesn't sound right. And boy, do I wish I lived in the era of the CD, where we sold a CD and we got like $3 off of a $14 purchase, and people were happy to do that. People were happy to go to HMV and buy a CD and say, yes, this album is great and I love it, and it's in my car or it's on my desk and I listen to it on my CD player, kind of thing. But now that we've conditioned and devalued, monetarily speaking, music to the point where, well, it should be free, because it's just basically I pay $12 a month to listen to anything I want, and then the artist has no idea of what percentage of that $12 a month from X number of millions of people do they get out of that, because in place are these systems that delegate and the information of plays and say, okay, well, this artist got played this much, here is your check. And then you're like, well, can I get a receipt, that shows me, where? And they're like, okay, since we're a privately held company, I suppose we could offer you some vague demographic data of where your music's being played. As for details, no, we're not going to give you every IP that's ever played your music, or every connection that was ever made to our server and stuff like that, because that would mean we would have to pay you more. And it's like, okay.
Web3 is an infrastructure that can hopefully bring back more control to whatever I create, to be able to follow it from inception to release, and then the trajectory that I choose it takes or the community chooses it takes, and allow not, me to participate that and the community, and be very fluid in the intentions that I want to do and pack into any specific project.
Web3 means like it's like a double-edged sword for me personally, but like all the positive notes are like, things like IP control and stuff, that all the power that I have, to, like, as Richie said, take my project here or there or anywhere, and kind of, stay away from the linear norms of, having an idea, creating the idea, and sharing the idea. Which is like just basically the three fundamental things of artistry or performing and stuff like that. On the other side of that coin, it's the adaptation of it. It's only as good as and as it has a breadth of multitudes of outputs and stuff as it does as people who adopt these technologies. So there's like a whole bunch of things already in place, the old heads that have just that are forcing it into the linear side, where we have our standardized streaming platforms, like artist makes music, label distributes music to DSP plays music. It's so simple that it's hard to escape, whereas like if you were to produce like one of these Web3 things now and drop it, you know what I mean, you would also in tandem have to do it the old way just to reach more people, because the whole general population of the music listener right now is listening on a phone, listening on a radio, or listening off of a streaming site. That's conservatively over 90% of how music is consumed, in the fundamental sense of consumption. Whereas now, if we start getting too tech heady, with using the latest UE5 and these visuals are insane, and the way that this project works, and it lives online, and you connect to this server with this application, it's like now you've just taken the market share down to like 5% of people who have the GPU power to kind of do this kind of thing without any hiccups, or have that technology available and stuff like that. And it very much reminds me of the mobile market, which is we've had this iOS boom over the last like 6-7 years because the majority of the world's population are on phones, not computers, So video game companies, major publishers, AAAs, have been making better profits, reaching more audience by developing mobile versions of their game, because of India and China and countries where not everybody has a honkin' RTX 3090, sitting at their desk. So you have to keep that stuff in mind. So one of the parts of, I would assume my role in the Pixelynx is to come and think of things like this, is where we have to make this system, or the end product, functional first on low computational standards, where it's like this can be on an iPhone, or this can run just off a web page, or something very simple that's not demanding 48 gig of VRAM and 128 CUDA cores. So yeah, there's a few barriers, but they're not really barriers. They're just kind of more of we're waiting for hardware and tech to catch up, as always with everything.
When I think about the changeover from analog to digital, it took a long time. Like, after 10 years, it was like, okay, I think we're getting somewhere. And that was, people started to actually move from vinyl over to CDs, who were still worried about going from vinyl to just computers and MP3s. And I would say it was really until 20 years until it was really widely adopted, and partly, or actually probably most probably, the reason why our scene has exploded in DJ culture and all this. So I think Web3 will have a quicker, kind of momentum of building, but it is like Joel said, there's we love exploring, and it's our job as artists, and also within Pixelynx, to remember how far we can push and still bring a great number of people along with us for that ride without getting lost in our own ideas or in the tech. At the end of the day, music is a source of enjoyment and experience with people. It's, DJing and dance floors is a community spirit and experience. And we also need to bring those into, you know, we need to connect those kind of ideas to smart contracts or to this whole new paradigm so that we are offering something new, but in the context that people can understand and appreciate, and that it actually gives emotional value to our fans.
Thank you. Something that's really exciting about building this project is, we can get really obsessed with this idea of interesting new experiences. And as Joel mentioned it earlier in the call, accessibility is key. There's no point building this super futuristic gaming environment for the music industry if only 5% of the world, of your fans can access it. So we started off with this vision of making sure that whatever we build is accessible. And so we have a mobile and a desktop version that will get launched. The mobile version is built with the team at Niantic, so it's the makers of Pokemon Go. And the idea is, in mobile, you can explore the world around you and start to collect interesting pieces of music content that are playable and interactive. And it's a small step towards revealing interesting new formats that we think will drive collection back into the music industry. And you saw some snippets on the video as well on the desktop game, which is really focused around giving artists the ability to create these immersive worlds that they can bring their fans into. And as we'll touch on in a second, it's not enough just to create virtual worlds. I mean, everyone can, technically create a 3D environment. What's really important is to create fun gameplay that keeps fans in the environment and keeps them wanting to actually progress and engage further. And it's so exciting to see music and gaming coming together, because I think there's a lot both of these worlds can learn. Gaming has really cracked monetization in many ways. They've come up with interesting new models that keep fans engaged and entertained, whilst also creating a meaningful business. And I think the music industry can learn a lot from that. So we have 3 pillars to what we're building. The game is what you just saw, and what we'll talk about at some point in the rest of this talk is also some of the underlying tools that we're developing. It's really important for us that this becomes a set of tools that can power the broader music industry. And so we're building a game, and it's developed on top of an underlying platform that allows you to basically tokenize your music and your IP, and basically distribute it, not just through our platform, but through others that are part of this broader ecosystem, and all powered by a set of open standards that the wider music industry can adopt. I touched quickly on the importance of game mechanics, and what we've done is we've created some really interesting, fun new ways for fans to collect music through immersive formats that we think will push music into the future. So, as I mentioned, it's not enough just to create virtual worlds or virtual concerts. There has to be some mechanic that keeps people engaged, and I think that's where we've really focused a lot of time on making sure that what we develop is actually interesting enough for people to want to stay there. There's a really important blend of making sure that this connects the dots between physical and digital. So with our mobile application, the idea is you can go to shows or explore your local city, and that's all physical. That's done through mobile, but it still requires you to leave your house. And then we have a desktop version which kind of takes you a little bit deeper into the broader metaverse experience. And all of this gives artists, we think, a new canvas to monetize and also express their vision. So we have new asset types that artists can launch, ranging from things like digital merchandise. And what's super exciting, I think, about the ecosystem that we're building is any digital piece of digital merchandise that's launched in our game can also be accessed in a growing network of over 1,000 different games and virtual worlds. So you could launch a digital skin or a new piece of digital clothing, and it's not just usable in our platform. There's a whole network of other games where artists can actually use that digital asset in, which is really important. This is a key pillar of Web3, and what it means is there's an idea called interoperability, which we may touch on later today, is fans want to be able to own something and actually truly own it. And that means not just being able to use it in a walled garden of one platform, it's having the ability to experience and utilize that asset everywhere and being able to buy, trade, and even sell it. Now, I mentioned the underlying tools, and we'll touch on this very quickly. It's really important that artists have control over their IP. So what we've created is, underneath our system, a way for artists to mint their music, their digital merchandise, and even the experiences that they build. And this gives the artist full control over how that IP is used, not just in our game, but in a much broader network of platforms as well. And I guess today we'll announce we're basically opening this out. So if you're a developer or an artist looking to create interactive music experiences, we have a set of tools that you can basically adopt and start to build your experiences on top of as well. I don't think there will be a single platform that defines the future of music in the metaverse. There'll be many different ways for people to consume and engage with music. And part of what we're doing is to create our vision of what that looks like, but also to make sure that we have tools for other artists and developers to take it in any direction that they see fit. Thank you. If you're a developer or an artist, feel free to get in touch. We're definitely always looking for partners.